welcome back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast, where we share games. I'm your host, Zach Short.
And I am Tyler Barrett.
Tyler,
Zach,
talk to me. We got a beer.
We do have a beer in this early hour of the morning. Early hour, 11
It's
o'clock.
like 11.
It's 11 o'clock. This is Sojourner from the Separatist Project. Another IPA. We drink a lot of IPAs. Mm-hmm. This one is really has a strong aroma, citrus aroma. It's pretty heavy on that.
It smells like cheesecake.
Cheesecake?
Is that just me? Or like some sort of cream dessert?
Yeah, I could buy that.
It's actually very good.
Yeah,
I like that quite a bit.
And it's not it's not particularly bitter because
No.
it's very citrusy. But this is from as I mentioned, the Separatist Project in Princeton, Pennsylvania. There we go. That's what we're drinking today, courtesy of Tavor. If you would like $10 off Tavor, you let me know on Discord, and I will give you my
Yeah, we're
Tavor
not
link.
sponsored by them at all.
Not yet.
We just really like Tavor.
Yes.
So
Yeah, so what they do is they will distribute small batch brews from all over the country, things that you wouldn't be able to buy in the store, that you really never able to buy in the store, and some exclusive stuff. Like we've had Anchorage on here before. They released a $40 single, like 375 bottle, which no one bought. Just can't swing $40, or maybe it was like $48 for a single bottle. The 375 is the small bottle, 12 ounce. That's not. It can't happen right now.
that's totally understandable. But
Yeah, but they a lot of great beers, a lot of craft beers from all over the country. We'll be trying it very soon. But an IPA from a new brew in New York. Their first time featured on Tavor. I'm very excited to try that when it comes in. But let's talk about something that's better than this beer. This beer is very good, but it's better than most things.
Better than much anything.
Yeah.
Tyler and I played Hades finally.
We did.
Finally got around to it. We've been putting it off to make sure our October series happened, which was really fun. Got to play a lot of really cool horror games, but Hades just is already a Zack game. It already is. So here's the pitch, right? It's a super giant game. Some guys that did Transistor, Bastion, Pyre, right? It's their fourth game. It's been in early access for a while, over a year, and it's finally hit its version 1 not that long ago now. So it's a roguelite. You have to make it through in one run to the end of the game, and every time you die, you start over. But unlike a true roguelike game, you do improve. Your character is stronger. You can earn certain, in this game, it depends on the game, but in this game you earn darkness, and it lets you invest into this mirror, which makes you actually stronger. You are now a stronger character.
Yeah, it's the equivalent of experience, right? You're leveling up various things.
Exactly. In a far more interesting way, and we'll get to that, but I really, it's a very simple kind of concept, and what Supergiant did has been done before. It's very closely tied to the narrative. Everything makes sense. You come back for a reason, and the reason is you're a god. You are the son of Hades, right? The god of the underworld, and you want to leave. I won't go too much into details. I'm going to stray very far from spoilers in this. I think it's recent enough.
In the beginning, or just at all?
Yeah, in the beginning. I will let you know when we get to spoilers.
Cool.
But I'm going to talk as long as I can without spoilers. I'll mark it for you in the description when we start talking about the spoilers. But yeah, essentially you are the god, you're Zagreus, who is actually a minor figure in Greek mythology. Sometimes he's the first incarnation of Dionysus. Sometimes he's actually Hades. It's very kind of loose, but in this game, you're the prince of the underworld. You're Hades' son, and you don't want to be there anymore. For an undefined reason at the beginning. You just want to leave, but, it's the underworld. You're not supposed to leave. That's the whole point. So this shifting landscape of the underworld is there to keep everybody in. And, there are these different demons and lost souls, all who populate these different tiers of the underworld trying to stop you from leaving. And every time you die, you wash right back up into the heart of Hades, which is your house, right? It's Hades' house. In fact, it just says every time you come back, the house of Hades, and you're there, and that's where you start, and you go and you get ready, geared up, and you go for another run. It's very action based. If you played Transistor, it's far less tactical than Transistor.
It's much more in the vein of Bastion.
Yeah.
I think they're taking a lot of those concepts and revisiting them.
Absolutely.
And did you watch at least the first part of the No Clip documentary?
Yes.
Yeah. So they mentioned like this is not them saying they want to like be lazy and not try. It's obviously like
they
so
wanted
much
a
love.
hack and slash.
They wanted to just make it a game where they could like sit back. It's not too heady and just make a game
in terms
where,
of the
where
actual,
you hit guys.
Yeah, a game where you hit guys, because it does get heady when you get into the builds and the boons and the things that you get throughout your run.
But the concept, aside from what they do with the narrative,
combat,
yeah,
is just classic. Isometric hack and slash. You have a special, you have a hit, you have a cast. All these things. It's far more simplistic in terms of the actual planning out of how combat works. You have to be aware, you have to know where you're at. There are traps, you have to kind of plan for how you're building, but overall, especially when compared to something like Transistor, it's button mashy in comparison. And that's not a detriment. It's just that's the style of game that it is.
On the surface, well, no, not really. Even just on the surface, the core of the game is pretty recognizable. We've seen a lot of this stuff. They're just doing it in their own way, whereas their previous two games are, I think, pretty new. Like a real time tactics game.
From
Transistor, and then this like sports RPG dating sim
messes with like
it's really bending a lot of genres.
It's very interesting,
which we'll get to, dude. I'm so excited to play it.
I'm glad I
got you on board now for just how interesting this studio is. Anything that comes out of this studio, immediately all of my attention will be drawn.
Yeah, for sure. If you guys haven't played a Supergiant game, I'd actually say Hades, if you're a gamer, is the best place to start. I would say that for sure. It's definitely a gamer's game. Lots of numbers, lots of percentage, lots of it's not going to tell you outright that your dash sends you through objects or it can dash you over gaps, just things that or pick up on that you have to be paying attention to. It never explains how to use your cast, which is the little diamond thing you shoot out that changes based on different boons that you get, which we'll get into. But I didn't use it all at the beginning because it didn't tell you how to use it.
Yeah.
And then...
Or even really explain its importance. And by itself, it's actually, until you upgrade it, I don't use it. I don't think it's particularly important.
It's free damage. I just shoot it. It homes in on people. It's free damage. It's
but
whatever.
It doesn't, right? It doesn't home in on people unless you get unless you get the Artemis upgrade, right?
No, I think it doesn't. Artemis makes it faster and home better, but it does. It does drift towards people. Yeah.
Oh, okay. It shows just how little I use it until I upgrade it.
Yeah, exactly. So it just doesn't explain that stuff. So it is a gamer's game, but if you are a gamer, it's a great place to start. Now, I did mention it's a roguelite. I would actually say this would be a game for people who traditionally might not like roguelite games.
Sure.
I think the way that everything is presented and what they're going for, their primary goals as a development studio, make it something that would be engaging for more than just people who like roguelites.
Everything around this game is designed to keep the player's attention, but in a way that I don't think has been done before. I have not seen it.
Yeah.
I think we have a disagreement on this, but I do play I have in the past played quite a few mobile games, and some of the mechanics here, aside from the combat mechanics, the stuff surrounding that, how you upgrade your character, what you're getting in a run and what you do with those things, and just the looping economy. It's a very fragmented economy. I think there's 7 different resources, all of which tie into each other and then tie into higher concepts of the game.
And if you have too many of one, you can trade it for another. Yeah, and, that kind of stuff.
These have found a very comfortable home in mobile gaming. And when they're applied elsewhere, in bigger games, bigger AAA games, usually it's with pretty predatory tactics.
Yeah, monetization.
I think EA, I don't want to say exactly who because I don't remember. I'll probably speak incorrectly. But one of the big studios, or it was Activision, I think. But whatever, I could be wrong. One of their lead designers on some big shooter a couple years ago was just straight up a psychologist to like get people.
Absolutely. And you can see that.
Yeah. It wasn't designed to be a fun game like Assassin's Creed, the last one. was those numbers were not balanced to be a fun game. They were balanced. This is a pretty unanimous to make you buy the experience upgrade. With 2 experience upgrades, I heard this from a few different people. With 2 experience upgrades, then it felt like a regularly balanced game.
That's
so
insane.
It was intentionally balanced to get you to make payments and to keep coming back and making more payments. And it's so easy to fall into that trap. But that's not what's going on here. And they offer you mentioned like people that may be turned off to roguelites. And there's a very good reason, I think a pretty good reason people are typically turned off to those. And that's like, you're just doing the same thing over and over again.
And you don't feel like you're getting anywhere sometimes.
Every time, even if you like die unceremoniously in the middle of a run, you are always being rewarded significantly.
Yeah, the way that I like to phrase it is every single thing has significance. The reason there are 7 different resources is because when you're walking through a run, it will actually give you a choice many times, not every time, but many times, the next room, it will show you the reward available. Sometimes it's a resource, sometimes it's a boon that helps you on that run. You get to make that decision. Mm-hmm. And that's just a small example. The significance of everything in this game is incredible. I'm kind of writing a little bit of an essay on it, and I just kind of want to read what I have here. I said, because Hades, despite the brilliance of its gameplay, makes its greatest strides in other places. I revel in death, excited to do my post-run routines and develop my relationships with the other characters. These characters are masterfully revealed, never too many or too much at once. There always seem to be more surprises on offer, even well after the first time you make it through your first run. Every action, from picking up your spear to completing that run, has an impact on the characters and this world. This is the genius of Hades, to make everything, especially your failures, necessary and significant to the world you're learning to inhabit.
Yeah, and the failures are incredibly important. And the studio, we talked about Transistor. I do recommend checking out that episode. We talked about the studio's focus on the player's failure experience.
Yeah.
And that's a consistent theme throughout their games. What are you getting when you lose? Because people lose a lot in video games.
Up to 11.
Yeah. Because they, aside from upgrading your character, they use the format of these design conventions that are in roguelites, which these are some things that can be seen in many different higher level genres. I think this is more of a subgenre, but they use this format to tell their narrative, and this isn't the sort of narrative with a particular, or rather the various like threads you can follow. Do not have a traditional beginning, middle, and end. But the characters are so well defined, so well presented, that you just want to be with them.
You meet them like you could be playing. I mean, you could be at your 20-hour mark, 30-hour mark. You're meeting new characters. Yeah. And the ones that you've met surprise you. Zeus, in particular. So the gods of Olympus can send you messages, but you can't respond. You can't talk back to them because it's the underworld. But they're gods, so they can send you messages, no problem. And so these messages they send you come with boons, which upgrade your attack, your special attack, your cast, certain, percentage upgrades. Each god has a focus, Artemis's critical hits, Zeus's kind of chain lightning attacks, that kind of stuff. But every time you take a boon, which are key to completing a run.
Yeah, you can't play the game without boons.
Yeah, it's like kind of, if you've played any of the roguelites, it's the one, these are the upgrades that you get on your run that go away when you're done, right? You lose everything. You lose all your upgrades, all your boons, you lose all your coin. Coin is only usable in runs, but you do keep certain, because it's roguelite, you do keep certain resources that...
Coin is the only one that goes away, right?
Well, coin, and then any like boons that you get in your run, sure. Right? Like, things that are powering you up.
But in terms of like the collectible resources, I think coin's the only one.
Coin's are the only ones that go away, Yep. But what's really interesting is every time you receive a boon, you hear the god's message. And the art, of course, is beautiful, as always. She doesn't, like, that whole team.
Jennifer, it's Gen Z.
Yeah, but she has a whole team now, and they do incredible work, really just baffling work. They bring these little, 3D isometric, they're far away, just to life. you know? And one of my favorites is Zeus, because Zeus, of course, being Zeus, just does not compute any sort of like trial or issue or error.
The epitome of privilege.
Yeah, he is just so
and
like,
it
must be hard down there for you, boy. Let me send you my blessings. I could never imagine, truly. You know, just that kind of a guy. But yeah, you meet another goddess later in the game. She's the last one that you meet, and one of the older goddesses who has kind of a icy relationship with the rest of the gods. And I picked up a boon from Zeus, and this is, I mean, I'm talking 25 hours into the game.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, real quick, just an aside. I've played this game now for just over 30 hours.
Yeah.
I think I have only heard a repeated line of dialogue once, and that's when I restarted the game.
Yeah.
I didn't quit the run. I restarted the game, like completely closed out of the game. So really, I have not heard a repeated line of dialogue.
Yeah, and the stuff that I heard is different from stuff that Tyler's heard. It's so dynamic, like what you're carrying, what you chose to enter this run with, how you're performing in this run.
Or if you have, like, you know, you're mentioning Zeus. If you have, he's likely got something to say for every other upgrade that you have. So if you've picked something up from Poseidon, the next time you pick something up from Zeus, he'll likely mention, "Oh, Poseidon has already talked to you. Interesting."
Yeah.
Or like, "Oh, my daughter Artemis, very interesting. She's a very level-headed person. Let's work together. I'd like to see more of my daughter." And then you can get something that comes from both of them, which we'll talk about later.
That's good stuff.
The duos, but there's like, always something new to hear, and that builds that relationship.
They'll surprise you because, you know, that is who Zeus is, just totally disengaged from what you are actually experiencing. But he'll mention that, "Oh, I saw you picked up a boon from Demeter." You know, I just, you know, she can be difficult sometimes, but be patient with her, lad. And just this extreme moment of just regal kindness and this, you know, genuine concern and wisdom coming from Zeus. And it's just like the complexity of these characters, not to mention the complexity of Hades himself, which we won't talk about till we get into spoiler territory. But I mean, at the beginning, you're just like this petulant child. You know, you can picture yourself, you know, taking the weapons that he's stored away, because that's what you're doing. He has these weapons locked away that you're using to try to escape, and he's just too busy to deal with you. He has far more important things to deal with, and you can picture him, you know, stumbling into that room and going, "Oh, he took the weapons again. I need to put them back in their plate." Yeah, like a frustrated father.
I'd like to riff on that for a moment. One of the things that gets me the most in this game and continually surprises me, it's the first thing I noticed when I booted up Hades, and Hades started talking to me, and then I went and talked to someone else. I was so giddy. The spin on the mythology, because it's so believable. They're just a dysfunctional family.
Yeah, which is really what Greek mythology is.
Yes, but you know, you typically think about these gods as like some you know, unreachable, unimaginable beings, but they're just a dysfunctional family with jobs, and are like Artemis is an estranged daughter that like doesn't want anything to do with the family. You know, she's a loner. She likes she's the god of the hunt.
Yep.
And you know, she likes her animals and her I forget what the like forest spirit creatures are called, nymphs. She likes just being in the woods by herself. Poseidon is like your super laid back uncle that is just like maybe this much crazy. And you know, Zeus, as you mentioned,
my
is just
favorite
is super rich
Dionysus, because he's such a bro, dude. Yeah. He's like, "Hey, I see you having some trouble down there, man. I'd be really happy to help you out."
And I've noticed very few of his sentences are not run-on sentences. Very very seldomly will you find a period in that dialogue box.
So many commas.
Because he's just like, "Hey, Zach, my bro, I see you're going, you know, it's really tough down here. And oh, you met Aphrodite. Well, let me tell you, I got something that will go well with her."
Yeah, he's just such a total bro. And he's
the god of wine, by the way.
Oh, yeah. he's my favorite to talk to. He's the one I have max relationship with right now.
Really?
Just
Artemis and almost Nyx. I'm almost at the top of
Nyx. And he is just, a total joy to talk to. And this is what you're hearing right now. We haven't even started talking about the gameplay, really. We've mentioned the basics, but the genius, I'm going to say again, the genius of this game, like other games have, built the story into the roguelite structure. That has been done before. No game that I can think of on this level with so much incredible dynamic interplay with every single tiny decision you make progresses this incredible narrative with these brilliantly, richly designed characters to where it's more than just, the story is built on this. This is, everything else is built on this narrative. Like, this is the progression of these relationships, your deaths, your decisions, everything plays into them. And that's what draws you back into Hades.
Yeah.
That's what pulls you in. You want to know these people. You want to see how they interact with this. Well, what happens if I pick this? What happens if I do this? One of my favorite examples is you can go into rooms where you have the opportunity to get 2 boons at once. So you can get a boon from Zeus and a boon from Artemis. But they're Olympian gods, so they're super petty. If you pick the other person first, they'll get really pissy with you and they'll start attacking you. Like in a room that spawns a bunch of enemies, Zeus will start shooting lightning bolts. You do get both, yeah.
Huh. I have never finished one of those rooms.
Oh, you should.
Because I did them in the beginning, and I was like, this is so dumb. Like, this is not worth my time. I thought you only get the one, and...
Oh, you get both. They'll like go,
okay.
Oh, I'm glad that we've passed... Like, Zeus will be like, well, now you've, I'm glad that we're past this misunderstanding. Just don't let it happen again.
Oh, interesting.
Nephew.
Yeah, because really, unless you... if you get them in any of the later areas, it's not worth it.
Yeah,
it'll ruin
I very rarely
your chances
pick them up
of winning. Because it's a lot of damage.
Yeah.
Like, Zeus is just striking lightning down everywhere.
The worst one is Poseidon. Basically, if I ever do them and I see Poseidon and someone else, I pick Poseidon. Not only because he's my second favorite of all the gods. I love him. He's great. But his waves... He just shoots these waves that just track you. And, like,
oh, yeah?
There's no invincibility, You get hit, you get hit, you get hit, you get hit over and over and over again. It's brutal. So I just pick, everybody else. But
so you mentioned you want to get to know these characters. You likely already know these characters. They are so believable. It is your drunk uncle and your estranged cousin.
Yeah.
But, like, oh, I have this drunk uncle. You have this totally overbearing matriarchal grandmother. Let's see what happens when you put them together, though. So that's what we don't know. But you likely know at least half of these characters in your life because they are so rich and believable. And increasing your relationship with them and getting to know them is what drives you to, well, after you've already beaten the game, what drives you to continue playing. And even if you are someone who is typically turned off by the traditional structure of a roguelite, like Spelunky or
Dead Cells.
Dead Cells, sure. I don't know about Dead Cells particularly. I don't know if it's just try to get to the end.
It's try to get to the end.
Okay,
but
so sure.
The thing that makes Dead Cells interesting is it's an exploration-based game, and so there are like multiple paths to the end if you know your way around the world. And so, you know what? My build sucks in this area. I'm going to try to go around that area and do this.
Mm-hmm.
So
Dead
sure,
Cells,
Dead Cells,
a mystery dungeon game. If you're not already drawn to those sorts of games, but do like this kind of combat, like if you've played Bastion and enjoyed that combat, or games with similar structures, the relationships and the story in this game will keep you going. And I think it's only until Hades, I had not seen it done before, but I was watching a couple reviews for it, and someone mentioned Children of Morta, which has been on my shelf for a while, just have not had time, unfortunately. I think it's doing something similar with that family.
Yeah, it's,
maybe not to the same effect, but it seems to be doing something similar. So it's a newer concept. Not many people, if anyone else, is doing it.
And I'd be amazed if anybody does it to this level. Like
it's hard to do things.
I was
to
just
the level
baffled at how
Supergiant.
How do they determine if I pick up the spear, which time Zeus will mention this, and after he mentions that, then I can do this later, and it just the interplay of every decision. So I'd like to move on and talk about the gameplay a little bit.
Yeah, sure.
But before we do, let me just mention that when you die and you come back, the first person you meet is Nyx. Sorry, not Nyx. Is Hypnos, and he's the god of sleep. He's Death's brother, and he is just this goofy little guy that keeps record of everyone who's died and how. And he'll talk. It's the first thing. So the first thing that happens after you die is someone is there to talk about whatever just happened to you. They have a dialogue choice for every enemy in the whole. Sometimes he doesn't mention the enemy.
Multiple deaths. I was killed by something more than once, and he's like,
"Gotcha again?
Learn? Come on."
Yeah.
And he's so wacky.
Yeah. Hey man, you didn't learn? I mean, come on, it's okay. He's very goofy and just really fun. It's the first thing I talk to every time is Hypnos. Just every time I go straight up to him. And you build that routine. I always go talk to him, and then I avoid my dad, who's sitting in the giant gaudy desk in front of you with Cerberus sitting next to him, which you can pet Cerberus just in case you weren't sure about that.
Cerberus is your pet. It's great.
He's
really
delightful. Great. He's just
you can bring him toys.
Yeah, and
talk to him.
He throws tantrums. He ruins the whole room and sheds in it and stuff. And he's a dog. And you can go, but I always go left and talk to Achilles. And you'll mention things like, "Hey, I met this guy," and sometimes they'll go, "Oh, I know that person," or have you talked much with the court musician? Court musician has a connection with someone that shows up during your runs, and you start to realize and bring messages back and forth in some sort of weird way, and the characters are. This is a testament to the design philosophy of the whole game. The characters aren't having a relationship and doing things. You are the vehicle. Your decisions, your decision to go and talk to them after talking to the other person, your decision to give them a gift. You are driving. You are connecting these things. Your gameplay, your time running through this insane roguelite dungeon crawler is what is defining, driving, and determining every relationship in this game, even the ones that don't involve you. Brilliant.
Yeah. It's not only using the structure of a roguelite to tell its narrative, but or rather not accompanying its gameplay, not just accompanying its gameplay with the narrative, but telling a narrative in that structure. So every time you go on if you remove the gameplay, which is great. I'm not saying you should remove the gameplay, but the narrative is told like that in small bits and pieces over and over again, that you have to really apply the thought to connect all these dots that are very well paced. I've not really consumed a story like that.
I don't think you even could remove the gameplay though, because
I'm not saying
choosing to. No, I know what you're saying, but I just want to mention you choosing to take the spear and dying with it against this one particular enemy will determine this one person saying this thing that leads you to talk to someone else that says something else. All of it matters. Everything matters, and just how did they fit it into a game? That also baffles me.
We are both about 30 hours in. Mm-hmm. We've reached the credits, but there's a lot going on.
There's
still.
So much more game.
Yeah. I'd like to pick it up on Switch and continue from there, but I don't know if I'll ever make the time for that. So I'll just continue playing it. I want to see the characters. I love all of them. Some of them more than others.
Sure, of course, but
I want to be with all of them.
Yeah.
Until I'm not allowed to anymore.
Yeah, till you tell me we have no more voice lines recorded. We have nothing left for you.
Yeah. But 40 hours
Darren Korb, you get back in that sound studio and you record me some more dialogue right now.
Yeah. 40 or 30 hours in, and it's still giving. There's a lot of game here, and maybe not as much of a value, but certainly, on the same level as Hollow Knight.
Yeah.
It's $25. You will get a minimum of 30 hours out of this game.
Minimum.
Yeah, and it just doesn't stop, man.
It's so good. So, and we haven't even mentioned the gameplay yet, which is so well designed.
Yeah.
It's incredible. So I want to move over there and talk about...
Then I'd like to jump back and just talk about our favorite characters.
Yeah, we'll do that
moments.
for sure. I just want
that'll be the spoiler stuff.
Yeah, once we get to spoilers. But so gameplay. By the end of unlocking things, you have 6 weapons available to you. You know, you start with just one, and you slowly unlock them as you do more runs. But what's brilliant is the way they encourage you to use all of them. This game is all about variety, making sure you're not getting the same run 2 times in a row. You know, they don't want you to have these, dominant strategies, essentially. And dominant strategies don't show up too much in roguelites because of the randomness, but what if I just like the shield and don't want to use anything else, right? Well, there's 2 ways that they encourage you not to. Number 1 is a random weapon when you walk in the room will have a hunger. It will never be the same one as the one before, I don't think. Like, if you...
I don't know for sure, but
it
probably
seems to be the case. Like, yeah. So, if I finished a shield run, maybe the spear has this little purple aura around it, and that just means it has a hunger. So you get a plus 20% bonus to all darkness pickups, which are your permanent upgrades.
Yeah, that's the experience you get.
Yeah, it's like your permanent upgrade currency, essentially. And so, it's like, oh, well, if I play with this, I'll get more stuff. So why not? So that's one way. That's the small way. I think that's a nice little touch. The big way is, especially after you've completed a run, but the first time you complete a run, basically there are 4 major stations throughout the run where you get a rare item.
Yeah, so there's 3 higher tier resources that you can only get from killing a boss, and that is the blood that upgrades your weapon, the ambrosia that allows you to
complete a relationship.
Yeah, so when you're furthering your relationship, you're giving them a gift of this like eternal nectar or something. Ambrosia is just like an upgraded version of that.
It's like the whiskey to the wine.
Sure, you can finish your relationship.
It's even in like a glass decanter. It's classic.
And then finally a big diamond, which they're all upgraded versions of another resource.
Sure.
But
you can't use the other resources for the things you can use these for.
Yeah. And they're not just you don't get them just once per run, but once per boss. So there's 4 bosses. Even if you finish the first, when you finish the first boss, you will never get that resource again with that weapon.
Yep.
Until the end of the game. We'll talk about what happens at the end of the game. But if you want more of that resource, go beat the first boss with other weapons.
So you
got 6. So you have a chance to get that resource 6 times. The first boss
always drops Titan's Blood every time. So, but if I beat that first boss, barring the end of the game stuff that happens, if I beat that first boss with the sword and go back with the sword, I won't get that resource again. I'll get just darkness.
Yeah.
That resource.
Just a large amount of darkness.
It's like 60, I think, for the first boss. Something like that. But if I were to go back with the shield and progress further with the shield, now I get Titan's Blood again. But then if I go back with the shield again or the sword again, just darkness, right? So it's once per weapon per boss until you get to the end game where the... I think this is fine. There's no spoilers here.
Yeah,
it's just totally gameplay. And this is, I'm going to talk about 2. Dead Cells is one of my favorites. I love that game. It's in my top 50 favorite games for sure. Brilliant game. My Steam avatar is Dead Cells. Like, I really like Dead Cells. I've put well over 40 hours into it. There's 2 things that I think Hades improves on. Number 1, at the end of Dead Cells, once you finish your first run, you unlock a boss cell. CELL, right? A boss cell. And what happens is all the enemies get buffed, they're stronger, they're harder to beat, certain areas do more damage with certain things. Basically a general difficulty increase. And there are 5 boss cells, I think, total, and that's it. That's how your post-completion runs go. What Hades does is something that Supergiant has done pretty much the whole time they've been around, which is you get this thing called the Pact of Punishment. And before you start a run, you can customize the difficulty. You can make traps do more damage. You can make the bosses get some sort of special attack. You can give enemies health increases, or 20% more enemies will spawn in every area. And each one of these upgrades has tiers, and it has a value next to it. So, one might be a value of 1 intensity. Using another might be a value of 3 intensity, right? And so what you do is, okay, I've already completed the game with shield, but I want to play with the shield again, but I also want to get those resources again. If you complete the game now with a 1 intensity difficulty increase turned on, you will be able to get those items again. And then, but you can't like skip ahead and do, well, I want to do 4 intensity and get, 4 at a time or anything like that. Like if you do 4 intensity, it'll just count for your level 1 intensity. You have to kind of increment on purpose. So 1 intensity, then 2.
And there's a lot there. So a lot of replayability.
Many ways to tweak this game's difficulty.
I don't know exactly how many it is, but it's probably safe to say there's at least 15 different modifiers.
Yeah.
So it could be simple things from like your items cost 40% more.
Yeah.
Or now, this one I actually found to be pretty reasonable. Your enemies have a shield, so they have to be hit once before they start taking damage. It's not an amount of damage that shield is, it's just they have to be hit once.
It's good if you have a multi-hit weapon,
just
because you're going to break through it anyway, you know? But, it's these little tweaks.
But then it could be something
as drastic as, we're going to now make this boss totally different. Like, it's the same boss, but, so for example, I'm going to use an early boss, the Hydra, the Bone Hydra. If you turn the difficulty increase up for the bosses for the Hydra, the stage takes on the lava. Like, there's only a couple spots that are safe, and the rest of it is lava.
That's probably that increase to the 3rd boss I mentioned earlier before the cast.
Yeah.
That's probably what that is then.
Yeah, it's crazy. I have not even bothered trying that yet. That's intense, because I've only gotten past the first tier for a couple weapons, so I'm going to probably focus on one and keep trying to move up. But that's a huge increase on Dead Cells. There's not just this flat, okay, let's make the game harder to see how good you are. It's here you go. This is customizable difficulty that has actual tangible rewards for using it and how you use it, and it's structured well. So
now,
huge props there.
Before we move further with this part of the discussion, what would you consider? We probably should have talked about this before. What would you consider? Would you consider talking about your cool and interesting builds to be a spoiler?
No.
Okay, then let's talk about that.
Yeah, let's do that. Well, let me finish this Dead Cells thing
for
first.
Sure.
So the other improvement on Dead Cells is, in Dead Cells, your like permanent upgrades. So, roguelites, that's what you do. You gain some sort of resource that doesn't go away on your runs, and you use it to upgrade yourself. So in Dead Cells, you can unlock new weapons, which isn't an upgrade so much as just increasing variety, right? And you actually have to be careful, because if you unlock too many, then you won't get the ones that you want and you're good with. It's a cool little system. It works incredibly well. But in Dead Cells, really the only way to increase your survivability and your endurance is just get the health potions. And there's 4 tiers of health potions, and that's how you survive throughout the whole game. You there's nothing else, which is fine. It works. On your first run, you might be able to beat it with just 2 health potion upgrades because you're really good at the game or whatever. But, if you suck, you just get all 4 and you get through. But you're going to eventually, with the boss cells, have to get good, if you want to keep getting rewarded and more stuff and unlock all the weapons and that kind of stuff. But then there's also these other upgrades that are more interesting, that they don't persist throughout the whole run. So, like, when I unlock the 4 health potions, I start with 4 health potions. Done. Every time. There are other little things that throughout your run you can choose mutations, and you can unlock these mutations, and those give you the interesting, cool little buffs, but you have to get to stations throughout your run, and they don't persist. In Hades, I consider this an improvement in Hades, where you have, at the beginning, before you start your run, your full list of all the upgrades. There is no flat health boost, whatever.
Yeah.
All of them are way more interesting. The one that is obviously kind of like there as the crutch, which I definitely needed, is the Death Defiance tokens, which basically you come back with 50% of your health. I actually only just now beat the game without having to use a single one. Like
which just
yesterday.
Sounds nuts to me.
Yeah,
I can't imagine.
I consistently make it to the final boss every time, and usually you get a max of 3 of these Death Defiance tokens.
Which means you have 4 lives.
Yeah, so you die once, twice, 3 times, and then you have 50% health left. It's a good system. The first time I beat the game, I just had 2 of the tokens. I used both of them. They're tough. And that last boss is tough, man.
Yeah.
Tough. But I just now beat it without dying. It was really hard. But
the first time I finished a run, I relied on those, not just like because I need the extra lives, but I built a run. I had a build that increased my attack by 30% every time I did that. So I was getting an increase of 90% damage by the time
it's an Ares boon. It's stupid good,
by the
especially
time I was on that last
even
life.
if you don't like use them, because you can replenish them for 200 gold, which is a lot of gold. Charon's obol, if you want, but it's tough. But what I love about Hades is all those permanent upgrades as you unlock them. Not only are they interesting and unique, like boost backstab damage by 50% at the max, or increase if you ever have your little cast shard that you shoot for your casting stuck in someone, increase damage done to that enemy. Really just, it's not just that flat, well, let's just increase how long you can live kind of things. It's incredibly varied.
There's a few of those, but very, very, very few.
Very few, yeah.
The lives, there is a strict health upgrade, but you start with more money.
The health upgrade, though, you can get health upgrades throughout your run. What the health upgrade does is just remove your need to go for those health upgrades early.
I still do it.
I tend to try to get to Hades, get to the end of Hades with like 200 health is about my happy spot. But
I don't know if this is the case, but I just felt like this is how it would be. When you get into later areas, are the boons better?
I know that whenever you get a boon from a mini boss, they're always better. Okay. I know that for sure. I don't know, honestly.
So I just made the assumption that was the case, and so I pick up as much health as I can in the first area, and I don't spend any money in the first area. So I save everything because I assume, I don't know if this is the case, but I assume it's going to be better in later runs. That's just I don't
know.
Video game
logic. We'll talk in a second about the way that the boon system works, and I really like it. But what I want to mention real quick is that not only do you have these more interesting permanent upgrades, but you have to choose between 2, which is incredible. So basically, the permanent upgrade that gives you 50% backstab damage, there's an alternate one that you have to not get the 50% backstab damage, and instead you get plus 75% damage to your first hit.
Mm-hmm. Everything has an alternative. For example,
and
the extra
you can't
lives.
use both.
Yeah,
you can't use both, and that adds so.
So there's already
much.
20 upgrades, and then you can just flip the switch, and have the alternate upgrade. So an easy one is the extra lives. Instead, for every room, you can restore once to 30%, instead of restoring to 50% every time you die.
Yeah, which is consumable on your run. So like when you're running, when you're going through, if you die with Death Defiance tokens, that token's gone. You can buy it back if it happens to be at the shop, but it's consumed. The alternate version is just if you die, you're guaranteed to have one time that you get to come back per area that you're in.
Per area or per room? Because I haven't used it.
I haven't used it yet either. Because I can make it all the way till the last boss, usually without dying.
I'd like to talk about that one because I think it's more useful for end of the game to just have the full lives, because you're not even worried about the individual rooms at that point. Like once you get good, you can clear some of those rooms. I remember on my final run, some of those rooms I was clearing in like a second.
Yeah.
So I think it would actually be more beneficial to the early game to just have that 30% upgrade, because you are worried about each room, because you don't really have your head around everything yet. So that's I think would be more useful to a early game player to be able to resurrect once per room instead of,
I don't know. I think that might be the case, but it's also way more expensive than buying your first death
That's
token.
what I'm saying.
Is
like
like
it
50
feels
darkness.
like it should be switched.
But it's like I said, incredible kind of spin on those permanent upgrades. It makes everything a decision. Sid Meier just what's that quote he has? Every game is just a series of interesting choices.
Sure.
That applies very much here, I think. Everything has to, and everything interplays. What you decide depends on what that next character will say to you, and all of it goes together, and it meshes so seamlessly that you could almost not even recognize it's there. Brilliant. So let's talk about the boons. So that way we can kind of lead into talking about our runs. But so what's interesting is, let's say you're the first boon you see is a Poseidon boon, and you want it, so you go and you pick it up. Every god has their own sort of style of fighting. So Poseidon has splashback. It will knock enemies back, pretty much guaranteeing most of the time that you'll get this when they hit a wall or an object. You get bonus damage on them, basically. So if they slam into a wall, they get wall damage. And Poseidon just adds that effect to everything. But then, if you keep going with Poseidon, he has something that if anybody gets splashed back, they get ruptured, which is just additional damage on top. So kind of like just stacks that kind of effect. If I pick up Poseidon early on, I'm going to pretty consistently see Poseidon through the rest of the run. Mm-hmm. So while it is random, I'd like to call it guided RNG. Like,
sure,
it's this interesting. If I pick this up, I will see other gods, plenty of them, but I will pretty consistently see Poseidon throughout. The same thing if I pick up, let's say Poseidon and Aphrodite early on, I will consistently see, both of them interplayed. The game will sometimes make me choose between the two, for the next room decision. It's kind of this guided RNG that I think is the best way that I found to describe it.
I mean, I remember back to the run that I finally did beat him on, beat the final boss. I had like 4 or 5 Aphrodite upgrades, and 2 or 3 Ares.
Oh, Ares is nuts, man.
Yeah. I found Aphrodite to be incredible. I haven't really used her very much since that run, but that run I was doing much more damage, probably close to 3 times damage, especially by the end of my last life. But then with Aphrodite, her thing is like you can inflict weak, which for a very small amount of time, your enemy who has been inflicted with weak is dealing 30% less damage. So I think by default weak is like 2.4 seconds. I was able to upgrade that to almost 11 seconds by some other things. And then if they do have weak inflicted, I do more damage. Again, with Aphrodite, when I pick up health stuff, I get more. So like instead of increasing my health by 25, it's like 35. Again, with Aphrodite, just a lot of things going on there.
And that begs the question, something that I thought of is like, well, then why don't I just, if the god's own kit interplays with itself so well, why don't I just go for them every time I see them? And there's 2 reasons why. One of them is one of those permanent mirror upgrades that you get, lets you do more damage. Like, I think it's max, it's 5% extra damage per different god that you're using in your kit. It's really good.
Yeah.
That encourages you to variety, but the number one and the most interesting way is what called duo boons. And duo boons, essentially, you will, let's say I have a good Aphrodite kit, or let's use one that I found extremely useful, which is I had Artemis's ultimate, for lack of a better term. It's called a call. It's called a call. And essentially, when it's at max, she just shoots a bunch of these homing arrows that have a high chance of critical damage. Well, her duo boon with Poseidon, so you have to have that with Artemis. And if you pick up a Poseidon boon, you have a chance for a duo boon. And the first time that it happens, you'll talk to Poseidon, but then like Artemis will butt in to your convert, like as if they're in the same room and it's some sort of like phone call and they're like, hey, like Poseidon's hey, how are you, little nephew? It's good to see you, you know. And he's always like hanging on his trident. Yeah. He's so cool. But he's so he'll go, hey, you know, I saw you're working with Artemis, like I got just a thing for you, and it gets a duo boon. And so now not only does it shoot more arrows, but every arrow does splashback damage with like all whatever else Poseidon bonuses you have on that splashback damage. So which I had Rupture. So I mean, I used it against the last boss. Not only is it critical hitting all the time, I mean, I'm talking an eighth of the health bar just gone every time. It is so good. And I didn't realize this until later. Josh told me this. He said you can go into your codex, which we haven't mentioned yet, which kind of shows how far you are in relationship with everybody in the game. Shows you character details, enemy details. I love what...
Really just everything about the game.
Yeah, and I love
any detail you may want to know, it's there.
And you can tell how much the developers loved it because when Achilles gives it to you, he says, I want you to love history. I want your love of history to grow, not just your love of warfare. You can see how much they love the story and the relationship part of this game. But anyway, you get that, and if you go to the gods, you can look at their boons, and you can see kind of the prerequisites to have the duo boon show up.
I haven't looked at that yet. I got the upgrade, I just haven't looked into the codex for that.
So, I mean, that alone, the duo boons are enough to just play this game 10,000 times because they're so good. Every strategy can work in this game. Like, really, once you kind of get the hang of it and know how to synergize stuff well, it's not a game where it's like, here's a couple that work and you have to hope that you get these things to drop. It's, hey, this dropped, I'm going to run with it, and you'll probably find a way to make it work. It's sure, some are better than others, but you can end most runs totally broken if you know what you're doing. Yeah. And
I was
looking
at
that's the joy
builds.
of it.
I was looking at some powerful builds, and it's hard to get them because it is pretty random. There's just some minimal ways that you can guide it, but for the most part, it's pretty random.
Sure, and sometimes
it relies on this Ares. It's an Ares Aphrodite build that requires many upgrades with a particular weapon and getting a few duos. It's very unlikely you're ever going to get it, but Ares special, his thing is. What is it called?
Blade Rifts?
No, the
Doom.
Doom, yeah. So you inflict some damage, and then in like a second and a half, there'll be a big burst of damage on the enemy, or it might be like 2 seconds. But
depends. Yeah, it depends.
If you're able to deal a bunch of damage to a bunch of enemies in 2 seconds, that will happen. Or if there's also a trade-off, if you increase the damage, you'll also increase the time. And of course, you've got your blade rifts. Those are super powerful. So you get like Hermes, which allows you to just fire them all at once, basically.
Yeah, dude.
Then the blade rifts will be out longer. They'll do more damage. You'll deal doom on a bunch of things with the shield. But Aphrodite will allow something about her will like allow the blade rifts to stay out longer and doom to happen immediately. So you can just like walk into the room and kill anything in like 0.2 seconds.
That's awesome.
And it requires some upgrades with the weapon, so you can get whose hammer is it? I forget. The
Daedalus?
Daedalus, yeah.
The god of the forge.
Yeah. So it requires a few upgrades as well there.
Sure.
So super unlikely, but supposedly just like a crazy god mode build.
Yeah, and
by the way, god mode. If I were to play it on Switch, I would play it on god mode for a little bit just to jump up to where I was.
Sure.
If this is a kind of game that maybe you've been turned
we
off
should have
by
brought that
before,
up. Yeah,
God mode really, because the narrative is a huge part. These sort of like dating sim mechanics are here to great effect. If you want to experience that, which I do, I don't typically get into relationships like that, but in games like that, I don't really engage with the relationship mechanics in that way. But that's what I want to do here. Like, yes, the combat is fun for me. I enjoy it greatly, but I actually really love all of these characters and want to build those relationships. You can turn on God mode and again is wrapped into the narrative. Like one of the characters like mentions that you're a god, and sort of flippantly, and your main character sarcastically is like, oh yeah, as though there's just some dormant power laying inside of me that I can just flip on like a switch. And the dude's like, yeah, that's what I'm saying, boyo. So it is
amazing.
In the menu, you can turn on God mode, which is going to make a few things easier. And I think if you die, you become a little stronger. So it will allow you to get there,
because you need to die. Dying is incredibly important to this
game.
Yeah,
you won't.
Things won't progress.
You can't
if you're not dying.
Play the game without dying. You will die your first time, and also that is.
It's a progression mechanic.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But if if the combat's a little difficult for you, turn on God mode. That's fine. It's there for you.
Kick some butt, take some names.
Yeah,
just
exactly.
Feel good.
That's Skelly. He's funny.
Oh,
so there's a one of the characters is really just your training dummy. And he's just a skeleton that comes out of this sand
pit. Get a little coin in his mouth,
Yeah, someone.
Hey there, boyo, how you doing? Huh?
Yeah, exactly. He's very silly.
And he'll like give you tips. He's like, hey man, I saw you died against those guys again. You gotta remember, you gotta hit them in the back. That's what it was there for the week. You can't hit them in the front. You gotta hit them in the back. Wait till they hit. He's like really. And the whole time Zagreus is just like, who are you? Like, why are you here? Who hired you? Like, hey, nobody, a good man never visits secrets. You know what I'm saying, boyo? Yeah, it's good. Just hit me hard. Here we go.
Yeah, that's what I get paid for. But nobody knows. You can ask a few people, and they're like, oh, I don't know.
Yeah, I asked Nyx, and she's like, what are you talking about?
Yeah, I also asked Achilles, and he's like, he seems fine. I don't think he's one of your father's spies, if that's what you're worried about.
Yeah,
but I have no idea who he is.
Just great little character interplay there.
Yeah.
And, again, you're the connector between all of it. You're the one connecting the dots. I like the way you phrased that. Real quick before I move on from the gameplay portion and get into spoiler territory, I wanted to mention that the level design really doesn't change much, because it's randomly, it's not randomly generated. Like, the progression is the next room you go to won't be the same every time, but each room is very carefully designed.
It is a designed little arena.
Yeah, now which arena you go to next and which boss you find on that run or which mini boss, that's what's changing. But the actual layout itself is not randomly generated. Mm-hmm. It's, in fact, I was watching that No Clip documentary, and they're like, this is extremely meticulously crafted for lighting, for everything. Like, this is very intentionally the way it is. So
now, are there more? Because it's like, 15 rooms in each, something like that?
I've never really counted, to be honest.
Are there more rooms, do you know, than you would actually go through? So like sometimes you might not see a room in an area.
I really don't know. I'd have to look that up. But it never feel, despite the level design never changing, everything else around that level design is changing so much, and the enemies are built in a way to where if you have a really, really good build halfway through, there might be an enemy that totally busts that build. Like, I had a killer sword build, and then I encountered little flaming, exploding chariots. Oh, yeah. And I totally busted it, man. Yeah. I could not get them out fast enough. I didn't have a good cast to, take them out.
Yeah, they can be difficult. The first time I encountered them, I was using the shield, which is just Zagreus America.
It's beautiful.
You can throw your shield exactly like Captain America, bounces off walls, hits enemies, comes back to you.
You can get a Daedalus upgrade that makes it bounce off 4 more enemies.
Yes, so that's the first time I got to the final boss. Is with this build. So I got the Daedalus upgrade that hits extra enemies. Then I got a Zeus upgrade that makes lightning hit adjacent enemies. So you walk into a room filled with these little bitty chariots that have bombs on them, and they're everywhere, and they're all next to each other. So your shield, you throw it, and now it's hitting like 7 enemies before it comes back to you.
Beautiful.
So it hits one, but there's like 5 other enemies around it, so the lightning hits all of them. And it keeps going, it hits the next, so it hits those 5 enemies again.
And the AoE on the lightning is pretty good.
Yeah.
Like,
so,
it's nasty.
So they'll keep respawning. Maybe there's like 4 waves of them, but the first time I encountered them, I cleared that room in less than a second.
Beautiful.
I cleared the room in the amount of time it takes them, the respawn animation to happen. It was really great, but then that wasn't too useful when you got to the final boss because it's a single enemy.
Yeah,
and it was fine.
And that's a good testament, because sometimes you will find a build just by super lucky that just wrecks everything no matter what. But It's not going to happen all the time. In fact, rarely.
Yeah, so
you'll find certain things that just bust your build, and maybe you're not built for bosses, maybe you're not built for multiple enemies, it's just maybe you're not built for that one stupid butterfly enemy that needs to die in a hole somewhere.
Yeah, I've never had a problem with that. Like, what I have a problem with a lot is the witch's
when
room.
You don't have a deflect. Oh my lord.
Oh my god, yeah. So Athena is and we'll talk about our favorite characters. She's up there for me. I love Athena. So her thing is she deflects projectiles. She does a couple other things, but
deflect damage in general, I think, too, right?
Really?
In some instances. It depends on what it is.
Oh, interesting.
But deflecting projectiles is definitely the
So you have a dash in the game, and everyone has some sort of upgrade to your dash. So Poseidon might have like a wave push out in front
splash,
of you.
Yeah.
Or is it behind you? I've actually never used
some
his.
of them initiate where you start the dash, some initiate where you end.
Yeah.
Some of the more interesting ones are Demeter has basically this cloud that flies.
It's like ice cloud.
It's actually a projectile that goes, a good distance, and it inflicts chill. That's her. Yeah. That's her thing.
So with Artemis, you get the a full 360 shield around you while you're dashing, and there are witches in the game that shoot these in the later areas. They shoot like a ball of 10 projectiles that after it goes a certain amount of distance will then eject.
And when there's like 10 of those witches, it is just a bullet hell game now. Like it is so nuts.
And there's one arena that is like 5 or 6 of those, and it gets insane. But you will not convince me that there is any better dash. Not Artemis, but Athena's dash.
Yeah,
I think is the most useful.
I think that's absolutely the case.
And you can hit those balls back, and when you hit it back, it does more damage. But it's 10 projectiles, so you're just immediately killing all of them.
Yeah,
they kill themselves
damage.
when you can deflect those
damage.
before the balls dissipate or expand. You can hit it back and kill them.
Yeah,
it's really great,
amazing. Yeah, I like her cast as well. Just the projectile deflection.
Yeah, I've used that quite a bit
because then it does damage at the end too.
It does.
It's nice.
Well, her the dash does damage at the end as well if you run into people.
Sure, I just meant because then it'll stick in them and then you get the damage bonus and all that stuff. But
I found it to be a little less reliable than.
Oh, it's
dashing,
definitely less reliable.
But I have used it before.
It's good. It's a good substitute if they don't offer me the dash.
Yeah. Yeah. So, what are some of your other favorite boons, or just category of boons?
Poseidon is my jam. Dionysus is my jam.
I found him to be really great.
No, Poseidon's because you think splashback, who cares? It's not. Walls are everywhere, and his dash is probably my second favorite dash because you just splash people back. It does a little bit of damage, but you're dashing all the time to avoid damage and stuff. So. Sometimes they'll just knock into walls and you'll get wall damage bonuses.
I have not relied on the wall damage too much, but if you can get someone in a corner, you're dealing immense amounts of damage.
Yeah, and especially with Poseidon, man, you can just
there are traps with the splashback.
Yeah, there are traps everywhere, and being able to position yourself well is incredibly key, especially when there's a lot of enemies. And Poseidon's all about getting you into position and getting them out of position. So I found him incredibly useful. I almost always pick him up.
In the second area, you can knock them back into the lava.
Oh, yeah.
And suddenly
it even tells you magma kill, when you kill them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's awesome.
So when you're standing in the magma, every 0.2 seconds, it's inflicting damage. So for the first 3 times of damage, it'll be 1, then the next 3 is 2, then it's 3, then it's 5, then it's immense amounts of damage.
Yeah.
It racks up very quickly. So yeah, if you can knock a few enemies back into the magma, you just go do whatever you want. Just go make a sandwich or something. Let them die.
Make a sandwich or something. Dionysus, man. And I've talked to a couple of people who are just like, why do you like Dionysus so much? A, he's a total bro. B,
sure.
He does. It's essentially poison. It's called Hangover, and you can stack it up to 5 times. And it does, anywhere between 5 damage every 0.5 seconds to I've gotten it up as high as 12, 13 damage every 0.5 seconds. And if it's stacked 5 times, then you can just keep stacking it. Keep them stacked at 5. You're just getting free damage the entire fight, essentially, especially against a boss. If you're just getting every 1 second a bonus 22 damage. That's insane. But then he has one of the most unique casts.
Yeah.
It's a little lob shot that does big damage if you land it. It like I think like the base for it is like 110 or 120, at the lowest level of rarity. Because rarity determines how good it is, and if
at
you get
the base,
and you can fix that by pomegranates. They're called palms of power, and essentially, if you upgrade it, that specific boon, it'll just increase the benefit of whatever it's doing for you. So if you do get one early on, and you wish it was stronger, because you usually won't be offered a replacement. Sometimes you will, but very rarely. You can just upgrade it with palms of power, so that way you can kind of keep it consistent with the rest of your kit. It's helpful, but. Yeah, Dionysus, you shoot the giant lob bomb, and it creates this big cloud that confuses enemies. They become disoriented. They're not attacking you. The different effects per enemy, it seems sometimes. But you can also stack with, you get another boon from him that lets you take less damage when you're standing in it. And, if you have 3 of them out, you can just chill in them and sit there throwing damage at them and doing what you need, not taking as much damage from them. And then he adds stuff that's like, if you are ever below 40% health when you leave a room, it'll just put you back at 40% health.
Yeah.
Dionysus is absolutely insane.
One of my the cast is my favorite of his. I don't really rely on Hangover too much, which maybe is not the smartest thing, but there are other things that I like more. With the weapons that I've used, maybe with other weapons, I'll find that more useful. But the cast is great. He's also got one that I love this one. So when you pick up the like Eternal Nectar or whatever that is, that allows you to build your relationships, you also get a health upgrade.
Yeah,
and you get one right now.
It's just so nice. Yeah,
it's great because that's also like one of the biggest reasons I'm there to play the game.
Yeah,
so
He'll
usually take
that.
It's a huge, like, very difficult choice for me if I get both of those. If like that's what my choice is between.
Oh yeah,
it's very difficult. But one of the first, I think it was the first duo I found was Dionysus cast with Zeus. Zeus is like, oh, you met Dionysus. He's like a wild one, that one, but I've definitely had a good time with him or something like that. And then they'll both join in the conversation and you get the duo boon. So when that cloud is out, it also becomes like a lightning cloud.
No
that is just
way.
Dealing continual damage. So when this is when I killed the second boss, the Hydra. I think I got hit once.
That's amazing.
Every, I think, third of his health bar you get down, his main head will become invincible, and out of the lava will come a few other heads. And there's
Lord.
2 next to each other on either side of the arena. So I just threw all 3 of those out and went and killed the other ones. And when I came back, there was nothing left. Yeah, it's really great. It's really, really great.
That's
and then
beautiful.
if you stack other things with, I may have had it on this build. Everyone has like an upgrade to their abilities. So you mentioned Poseidon has Rupture every time. Anyone who is being inflicted with knockback also gets ruptured. Or if you have
Zeus, he gets static.
So anytime an enemy attacks, if they have been dealt lightning damage from Zeus, then they get static, which the next time they attack, they deal damage to themselves. So static was also happening in this cloud. So not only was the cloud killing them, but they were killing themselves.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just beautiful. So beautiful. We haven't really talked much about this yet, but the weapons, we talked about upgrading the weapons with Titan's Blood, and you can either, just upgrade the weapon as it is, or you can use it to unlock aspects of the weapon. So different variations. So for example, the spear has, when you start out, 3 aspects. Well, when you start out 1, but when you unlock the aspect portion of the game, there's the aspect of Achilles and the aspect of Hades. So the Achilles aspect, it makes when you throw your spear, you can now either choose to recall it to yourself or charge through to where your spear is. It's almost like a teleport, but you do damage along the way. Mm-hmm. It's good. It's fine. I don't really use that one. The second one is I'm sure someone has found a way to make incredible use of that. But
I mean, crazy backstab damage.
No, because this one you replace it by charging through.
Yeah, so you're immediately behind them.
Oh yeah, I get what you're saying now. Yeah, it's a good mobility thing for sure. I prefer the aspect of Hades, which just makes you charge up your spear and do this little like spinny attack.
Yeah,
it takes up most of the screen now, and goes through pillars. Usually, if you like hit someone with something, but they're behind a pillar, like if you're on opposite sides of this pillar, you won't do damage to them. Like if I stab them with the spear, but that pillar's in the way, the animation will look like I hit them, but it won't actually do damage. This does. It just straight up goes through it and does fat damage. So
I haven't used that one. I upgraded the base one, the aspect of Zagreus.
Sure.
So all of them start with the aspect of Zagreus.
Just increases damage and general stuff like that, right?
It increases your specials damage and backstab damage.
Yeah.
So it's specifically for the special, which is what I was going for anyway. So with the spear, you can throw it and it just stays there and you can call it back. On its way back, it does damage, which is always, if you recall it immediately before the enemy moves, is always backstab damage, which is increased. What is it, like 50% extra damage or something?
Yeah, I don't. But then it depends. That's a 50 increase on top of what backstab damage already does, though. Right?
No. I'm saying what is backstab damage?
Oh, I don't know off the top of my head.
So let's say it's 30%. Well, this is allowing you to do an additional 25% backstab damage, and then I've got the Nyx's Shaw, which gives me 30% extra backstab.
And then you have your mirror upgrade.
Yeah, there's already a mirror upgrade. Yeah, doing a lot of backstab damage. That's where I was going first. I unfortunately didn't finish a run with that playstyle, but that was my early strategy.
Sure,
relying on backstab.
I mean my run that I first beat the game with is the aspect, I forget the name, but it's the first aspect available for the bow after the Zagreus one. And essentially what it does is when you charge up a shot and hit someone with it, or if you hit someone with a shot of the just normal bow attack, they get marked. And now your special, which is usually the spray of arrows, like 9 arrows, all those arrows now home in on them, but it reduces the arrow total to 4, which can be upgraded with, upgraded back to its normal with more Titan's Blood. But yeah, so I did that, but there is a Daedalus upgrade that increases it back to 9.
So you're doing more than 9 if you get it fully upgraded?
Well, no, because if I get it fully upgraded back, then you're doing even more. But it's but this, since I didn't upgrade it any further, just puts it back to 9 arrows, all homing in on this one target, which you can do 3 times before the target goes away. If you're just hitting it, it's a time thing. But
okay.
If you just hit the special button, you can do it 3 times. Well, I had Rupture and Poseidon on those arrows, both at epic level of rarity. Every single target I faced, nothing.
Really? I can't get around the bow and the gun.
The gun, the way I won with the gun is just because of Daedalus. Basically, there's one that lets you shoot 3 of the grenade lob shots in quick succession.
Yep.
And then, and then you have one that turns it into a rocket instead of a lob shot, so it just immediately hits the enemy, basically. AoE Aphrodite on that. We were good. We were good to go. I wrecked shop with that. But anyway, you can see we're just talking about these builds and just the incredible variety. And it's not, sure, we know how to make a good build now, but, it's what's given to you, that guided RNG. It's fun to mess around with, and it encourages you to try new things. So just incredibly good game design. Are you ready to move into spoiler territory a little bit?
Yeah, I think so. I want to talk about my last build.
Go for it. The
last thing I tried, which I died, because this will lead into spoilers, because there's a big spoiler here when I died.
Should we just do a spoiler disclaimer now?
Sure. Yeah, the beginning of what I'll say is
starting
not, but
now.
Yes, spoilers right now. We'll put a little flag up on the screen for a moment. But the rest of the conversation will likely be spoilers. We have a tag that we put on there.
Yeah, so just here we go.
Anyhow, I tried the sword finally. I haven't played the sword since I unlocked,
because it's the first weapon. Thing you get is the sword.
Yeah, so I immediately unlocked the spear. That was the first thing I unlocked, and I hadn't played with the sword since.
Yeah,
so I decided to play with it this time, and I got the Daedalus upgrade that allows your special to deal double damage.
Sure.
It attacks twice, but it doesn't push enemies back.
Which is fine if you're doing double damage, yeah.
It's also fine when you're doing Poseidon.
There we go, boys.
So I was already doing a lot of rupture damage also by hitting that twice.
Yeah.
And like the skull mounds that shoot out the numbskulls, those die immediately.
Oh yeah, they're just gone.
With the double upgrades, so I was able to like dash in with the stab to get rid of that little shield with the modifier, and then do that, and they're gone immediately. And all of the skeletons that have spawned around them. So I was able to just like basically like from Smash, I hate playing against Link when he's got that stupid hop with his sword.
Oh yeah.
What is that just his
dash
forward
attack?
Because dash attack, it's that. It's just that over and over and over and over again.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was really great.
Yeah, I'm so good. But yeah, let's
the spoiler.
Yeah.
On this run, I saw a little bag of money when I went into the shop. So one of the gods is Karen, who is the
boatman of the River Styx.
Yeah.
He's the ferryman to the underworld, essentially.
And he runs a shop that you can come across.
Says no words. If you go, hey, Karen, how's it going? He goes,
he's straight up a zombie.
But he's so well designed.
Yeah.
Like he's like all this like gold, and he's got this skull with purple gas coming out of his face.
He's really cool. I look forward to seeing what happens when you increase that relationship all the way.
Yeah, I wonder what would just like.
Well, I stole from him.
Yeah, I love it's. I did not have the cojones to give it a try, but it says borrow 300 gold or whatever. Yeah. Like it's just so funny.
And he takes you to an arena. And Zach, he's just like a zombie moaning at you. And Zagreus is like, I'm sorry, I've just become so accustomed to picking things up down here in my father's realm. I didn't mean to steal from you. This is just a this big misunderstanding. And so you've been teleported to another arena.
Okay.
And he is insane. He constantly summons these like just huge clouds of skeletons that sweep the screen. You have to or like floating purple skulls. They just huge clouds of them. And then after like you decrease his health a certain amount, they come from two directions. So they come from really it covers the whole screen because it's coming through the X and the Y axis. And you have to like dash, I guess, diagonally to get in the perfect spot to get away from them. But his oar, he fights with his oar. And it's telegraphed, his attack, but I don't think I was able to dodge his attack. He just sweeps across the screen with his oar, and I think it's like 50% of the entire screen. So he'll like if he like starts here, it'll be an entire like 180 sweep.
Wow.
Of the whole screen, and it deals massive damage. I think he killed me quicker than Hades did anytime I fought Hades.
No, I'm going to steal from him. I just want to fight him now.
Yeah.
I just want to fight him now. That's so cool.
You got to make sure you're ready because, maybe wait for a later area.
Because I saw him in Elysium when he was doing that, and I was like, maybe I should. I was like, no, I need to move on.
Yeah, wait for Elysium. Don't do it early on. I did it early on.
You just got wrecked.
Yes.
The Stygian boatman.
Yes, he is pretty cool.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
I'm super excited for that then. But that's what this game is about. There's so many little surprises. You get a fishing
rod. That was my
rod.
last session last night. 34 hours into the game.
Yeah, you get a fishing rod.
Yeah,
and like you just have these little moments where a fishing spot will appear in an arena, like where you're fighting people. You clear the arena and you can just sit there and fish. And there's like little like skullfish has like a skull for its face, and it's just little moments, little details like that just really enrich the whole experience.
Get you some goods.
They do get you goods. You can give them to the
chef.
To the chef. He's this little shade.
He'll buy them from you.
Yeah, and he gives you like ambrosia and like really good
ambrosia.
Yeah, I caught a bass like up on the surface realm.
Interesting.
And he gave me ambrosia for it.
Oh, I haven't been up there a second time.
Oh yeah, it's so basically the final boss of the game is Hades. Surprise. At least for the runs. I don't know if something's going to come later or something like that, but you have to fight him. He has 2 phases. He's tough as nails.
Yeah.
The guy is so good. He has this huge like the spear attack where you charge and sweep around.
Yeah, because he's using a spear as well.
Yeah, it's basically just a modification of the spear you're using, because the spear you're using was his spear. And so he's just, I mean, huge damage, homing attacks. He has this massive, it's well telegraphed, but if it hits you, you'll get hit for like 20 damage like 3 times. It's this giant like heat ray kind of thing in his second form.
Oh, the heat rays are nuts, because I feel like the hit boxes for the pillars you can hide behind,
it's a little off. Yeah.
I don't think those are totally lined up.
It's a little off. I will say that, or at least
especially
hard to
the
see.
One in the upper right corner.
Yeah, I always go for the bottom right now. It's way more consistent. But again, he's tough as nails, but you don't really like. I didn't think Hades was one of the best characters until you get to him. Because every time that you walk out there, you get out of the Temple of Styx, Cerberus is guarding it, you give him a satyr sack, which is just, who knows what it is, it's just disgusting.
Dog food.
Yeah, it's gross. And he moves out of the way for you, and you go outside, and your dad's there, and he's waiting for you in his full, battle regalia. Even like if you fight him enough times and win enough times, eventually Zagreus will be like, can you just burn your little capey thing off and take your spear out? Can we just fight now? Like I'm ready. But he's very just this combination of disappointed and sad and a little bit of disappointment in himself almost. His character immediately goes from one of the cool characters that's there to maybe the best character in the game. Like he's up there. If not like favorite, he just, in terms of the depth and how well realized he is with just a few lines.
Yeah.
And he's under the same curse you are, because it's a totally Greek story, man. So Greek. You get out, you beat him the first time, and he's on his knees and he says, okay, if you find her, can you tell her that Cerberus is okay? Like just this weird little like moment where you can tell he still cares about her, and just He wants you to just be with him, to just stop trying and just to do your job and be the prince of the underworld, And you leave and you find Persephone outside and you have this moment with her before. And the last thing Hades says to you on your way out, though, is the same thing that pops up at the top of the screen every time you die. He says, there's no escape. And you go out, you meet Persephone. It's a beautiful moment before you realize that you can't live on the surface realm. You die after just a couple minutes with her every single time. And that is the most Greek thing in the whole world, too. Like all those stories.
Is she the last trinket you get? When you go back, can you give her?
I keep accidentally immediately talking to her.
Oh my God,
I just want to talk to her. I'm so excited.
But you can talk to her more if you do that first.
I know, but I keep forgetting. It's why I only just now gave Athena a gift, because I just keep going, oh, Athena!
Have you unlocked any of the trinkets on the bottom yet?
Yeah, I've unlocked everything but the last trinket.
I mean the locked boxes.
Oh, no, I haven't done that yet.
Okay.
Yeah,
I don't know if you have to get all the trinkets first or
I'm not sure, to be honest.
I'm stocking up keys because I imagine those are you'll need to unlock those with keys.
Maybe, I don't know. I have not been stocking up keys. I've been using them to buy ambrosia, or not ambrosia. I think they have something to do with summons, or not summons, but like some sort of because like on your winning screen it has something about companions. So there's a whole mechanic of this game we haven't even played yet.
Or also just like something else, we've not completed a relationship with any of the characters yet.
Yeah, and I'm still trying to figure out like what to do for some of them. It's pretty unique, and there's so much here. But you talk to her and you die, and so the whole game now becomes, I'm gonna keep escaping the underworld so I can have 5 minutes with my mom. Yeah. Like, it does not get more Greek than that, dude. Like, it's so good. And you talk to your dad again, and he pretends like nothing has happened in front of everybody else. He's like, "What are you talking about? Get out of here! You're wasting my time." A record of all your deaths is kept by Hypnos, and every time your dad kills you, he goes, "Redacted got you again? I've been asking around. Nobody knows who this Redacted guy is." Like,
he doesn't know what he's like. What's a Redacted?
Yeah, it's amazing. But every time you get back up to the surface, you talk to your dad again. And you have a real open, honest conversation with him. And you realize, because Hades is under the same curse as you, he can't leave the underworld either. And just his character evolves and grows in these conversations with you, and he's so richly realized within his own mythology and a Supergiant's interpretation of him. Yeah. And I cannot wait till I get out there and get to talk with him again. I know Zagreus is sick of it, but I'm like, what are you going to say next? Yeah. Like, what are you... And as you talk to your mom more, I've talked to her, I think I've beaten the game 6 times or 7 times now.
God, I can't even do it.
Or beaten the run a second. It gets easier as you unlock more stuff. I mean, I have the thing that like increases the drop chance for legendary boons and stuff, and
that's my next thing. Everything else on my page right now.
I'm saving up for the 1000 reroll. You can re-roll.
I have 2 of those.
Isn't that cost like 1,000 though?
There's 2 different kinds of rerolls.
I'm talking about the reroll that you reroll your boons. And the shop.
No, I've got the one that allows you to reroll the rooms.
Oh no, I'm trying to save it for the one that lets you reroll the boons. I think that's going to be beautiful.
Yeah, maybe I'll respec and get those.
Yeah, because you can spend 1 key to respec everything at any time, which is just, again, a great addition to the game. It lets you play around with stuff without having to grind for it. Just well done. It's a great game.
This is a little aside, just like a really nice little touch. Anything you're standing in front of, when you open your codex, it'll automatically be there. So you don't have to dig. You don't really have to dig through your codex.
Oh, so well done. I'm so glad you brought that up.
It's very useful.
One thing I didn't want to bring up before spoilers was, after a certain point in the game, I don't know when, Thanatos, the god of death, starts showing up. They call him Than. Obviously, he and Zagreus are close in some way.
They're stepbrothers.
Yeah, they're obviously really, really close in some way. And you get to see this interplay with them where Thanatos is supposed to be doing his job. There's a war going on in the surface realm, so he's supposed to be up there taking care of stuff, but he basically comes down, will randomly appear in one of the rooms, I think every run afterwards, or at least almost every run.
It's at least in the 3rd one, it's when you get a health upgrade. Because to get the health upgrade, you have to beat him.
Well, you'll get something regardless if you beat him or not. But then, really? Yeah. So you don't fight him. Right. What you do is he says, "All right, let me help you out. You obviously need some help." He's very obviously pissed at you for leaving, but he still cares about you, and that shows so well.
It's like a little competition. You're trying to kill the most enemies, and then he'll give you a health upgrade
if you beat him. Yeah. In like the count, which is a really interesting way to vary the combat, because then you play more aggressively and you take more damage, and you're trying to. But you can just let him kill everybody too.
Yep.
Like you can just sit back and let him do all the work for you, and because he does 9,999 damage. He's
very slowly.
Sure, like he puts a mark on them, and then after about 5 seconds they die immediately. Like no questions asked. He also has a little AoE thing that after about, I think it's like 5 to 7 seconds, it'll go, and everybody in the AoE except you will die. So a friendly competition with the god of death, Thanatos, who's well designed. He's awesome. So, but like that just shows up while you're playing the game, and the first time it happens, you hear his little death knell, ding, like his little bell. Have you gotten his trinket?
Yeah.
That thing is so
the only
good.
one I don't have is the one that likely comes from your mom. I'm just waiting on the last one.
Yeah, me too. I'm waiting on the last one as well. I need to see what happens.
Make sure you have one next time you go.
I try to always keep one on me in case I run into what's his name? Patroclus. Yeah, Patroclus, because the others I run into consistently, but Patroclus I have trouble finding him sometimes. So
well, I mean, he shows up randomly.
Sure, but like the others seem to appear more often for me for some reason. Sisyphus, by the way, so nice. Is I described him. He's a gem. He is just a total gem of a human being. And it plays well within the mythology because he, is the only person in Thanatos really, which is supposed to be the depths, the most disgusting, awful, torturous place in the whole underworld, where the pieces of the Titans are scattered, right? He just pissed off Hades because he cheated death for a couple, minutes or something, and so Hades just locked him up down there and forced him to push this boulder up eternally, this thing. But every time you find him, he's not pushing it, he's just chilling with
Speaking of a couple minutes, I really like their concept of time. They constantly remind you, like, they don't actually know what day and night is. So some of them will.
Well, you know what it is. They're just like, I don't know, it's day and night. Like,
yeah, there is no day and night in the.
Do you want dinner or midnight snack or whatever we have right now?
He's like, so they reference that a couple times, and it's funny, like trying to be on time. He's like, what is on time? I don't know what you mean.
Yeah.
But what was I just gonna say? Oh yeah, there's a moment with the court bard. What is
Orpheus.
Orpheus. He's talking to
who refuses
Hades.
to play music.
Yeah, he's like lost his.
I'm afraid I cannot play.
Yeah.
It is so difficult for me.
So Hades is like, you will start playing immediately. You will find your muse and play immediately. You have 100 years and not a second longer.
It's just brilliant.
Yeah. There's a lot of little touches that are really nice.
Yeah, their world is so well realized, which is consistent for Supergiant. That's just something they always knock out of the park. And especially considering that this Greek mythology can be very overdone, and to make it feel this fresh is an accomplishment all on its own.
Mm-hmm. So you've talked about any other like favorite characters?
I mean, there's so many. I love Patroclus. I mentioned him. He has some sort of connection with Achilles.
Yeah, I've only got to meet him twice.
Yeah,
so
and
I don't really know him.
He's very he's in Elysium but hates fighting. And it's supposed to be where you go when you love fighting. You're supposed to be. Oh, how have I not mentioned Theseus yet? So Theseus is so perfect because every time you enter into the arena to fight him, he's the boss of the third area along with the Minotaur, which, Theseus killed the Minotaur in the story. And so you're like, why are they fighting together? And it's just this weird thing that's happening. And the Minotaur has a little Elvis curl on his head. He's got these giant blue
Minotaur.
and pink gloves.
The use of pink in this game is
amazing. But, the Minotaur is very like level-headed. I'm prepared for a good fight. This will be good for both of us, like I'm proud to be able to face you. And, he's very, honorable. And Theseus is like, I shall remove your hellish pustule from the face of this underworld realm. And every time he shows up as the character image, little sparkles appear next to his, he's the good boy. And just like you,
fantastic.
He can call down the help of the gods when you get him to half health because he's favored. That's him in Greek mythology. He's just the dude who's okay with that, with the gods. Like he's the good boy. He takes care of it. He's the hero, and just so realized. But then, as you talk, because you can fight the Minotaur, Asterius is his name. You can fight him by himself as a mini boss before you get there, and you can have conversations with him. And eventually, Zagreus is like, "Why do you hang out with this guy? Like he's such a disgusting person and I hate everything about him. Why are you hanging out with him?" And you get this backstory on Asterius where he has, he got sent to Tartarus. He's a monster. And so when he died, he went there. But when Theseus died, he went down to get him and take him back. And he basically redeemed him and allows him to be in Elysium. And the Minotaur is like, I owe him everything. And so you get, again, this side of Theseus that you just don't see, you get from another character because you're spending time talking with them. Just having a sparring match is kind of what it kind of turns into.
I really like that relationship. I haven't gotten that far in the relationship as you've just mentioned, but even just the first couple times you fight them, they start to reveal a little bit about each other. And yeah, they were like mortal enemies on, in life, but now they just have eternity to do what they like. And so they're just like bros that like friendly competition.
Yeah, so they're fighting all the time. Yeah. But I mean, the vocabulary present in Theseus is just brilliant. I wish I could just have a list of every word he says because he's just so fun to talk to.
Yeah.
And you can't build a relationship with him. You can only fight him. Same with the bull. But I guess it fits the theme. You're in this place where people just want to fight. But anything else you want to talk about, man? That's a lot.
I want to mention a couple characters. I love Nyx. She is
Nyx is awesome.
Your mother at first, and you realize that she's your stepmother. Once you finally realize why you're trying to get out, she's your stepmother. And I really like
she's
the
one giving you the ability to upgrade yourself permanently with the darkness. Yeah. Darkness is her essence,
and she sort of facilitated the communication between you and the Olympians. But I really like her character, and I like stoic characters, especially like powerful stoic women. Like I mentioned, I like Athena a lot. They're both very level-headed
and Nyx is
stoic.
just has this fierce gentleness about her.
Yes, exactly. Which seems like it would be a juxtaposition.
No, but it totally.
She's such a powerful force. So I really like.
Have we not mentioned Chaos?
That was the next character I was going to mention.
Final Fantasy last boss looking.
Yeah, like crazy, like this like cloud of flesh and heads that all melt into each other,
holding a marble-sized earth. In between its fingers, like. Oh my gosh! It looks like something Cloud would fight.
Pretty incredible, definitely. But Chaos is Nyx's mother and father.
Well, Chaos is everybody's mother and father.
Sure, but it seems like Chaos is building a relationship
connection with
you.
Nyx primarily. Yes, as darkness.
It seems to have. Chaos seems to have like raised Nyx, but Nyx has become maybe kind of estranged. But everyone else seems to not realize that Chaos is
everybody else just kind of doesn't
still exists.
Remember or ignores or.
But Chaos takes a very particular interest in you because you've been raised by Nyx, and you remind them of Nyx, and
they give you these very unique,
really
boons.
Interesting boons. Yeah, you have to go a couple of encounters with some sort of debuff, and then you get
like if you use your special, you lose 3 health, or whatever.
Every time you lose your special. So if you're building around your special, but that boon is going to give you something really awesome, it's difficult.
It's just, again, choices.
Really
interesting choices.
Really interesting choices.
And you don't meet Chaos for 10 runs or something too, and you just all of a sudden see this portal and it says you'll lose health to go through it, and you're like, of course I'm gonna go check. Like there's this mystery to it,
but that relationship is really interesting. I think it's
both a male and female voice talking at the same time.
Yeah, and it's very explicitly like it is the mother and father of all. I just keep saying she because like that female voice comes through a little more.
It does, yeah.
It is a little more feminine, but
very androgynous face, just
yes, definitely. So I just really like the relationship that's building there, and it's like really they're really enamored by you, like how you are shrouded by Nyx. They sort of miss Nyx, and you're just building this weird relationship with the creator of everything. Yeah. And it's bizarre. Very mysterious. But I really like the two of them. Really, I like most of the female characters here.
I like pretty much all the characters.
Yes, I do. But my 4 favorite being, in no particular order, Nyx, Chaos, I guess not a female character, Artemis. Artemis is the one like I immediately built a relationship with all the way. I just really like her. Like
she's quirky.
She's like prickly and quirky, and she's not very trusting
or socially. Like she's not good being social.
She's definitely removed herself from the family, and she doesn't really like reside on Olympus very much. She's not in the castle or whatever, like the halls of Olympus. She just likes to be in the wood with her nymphs, and she's the god of the hunt. Yeah, and she's sort of removed, but your sort of pep kind of sparks an interest in her, and I like that. So I'm building that relationship, but then also Megira, is that how you say her name? Yeah, Megira. I really like her as well. It's obviously your ex-girlfriend. Oh, like, you've definitely boned a few times. Yeah. But she's tasked with, she's the first boss, and she is tasked with stopping you. She's sort of like a lawmaker.
Well, she's a fury, so her job is to punish those in Tartarus, right?
Well, like when you give her which I don't really understand this. Like, why is the nectar seemingly like illegal?
I think it's because you're in the underworld, specifically the deepest reaches of it, and that's something that would relieve and be wonderful and a huge gift.
But it's sold in it's literally like crates of it are on the wall.
Yeah, I think that's where you're supposed to keep it. Like that's the thing, because Hades can have it, obviously, probably, I assume. But yeah, there's something weird about it that you're not like supposed to have it out or supposed to collect it or supposed to.
Okay.
Well, see, that's so funny you mention all those as your favorite characters. I always went for like Hades. Ares, Poseidon, Achilles.
They're super fun characters. I like them, and they probably get deeper as you get to know them. And Achilles, of course.
Dionysus.
I love Achilles.
Yeah, he's amazing.
But like Dionysus and Poseidon are fun characters.
I love them, man.
And like the fun character that I've sort of become enamored with was Artemis.
Yeah.
But the other ones, I think,
are really good. Yeah,
they're much more involved with your immediate life. Like you've got your stepmother who's raised
Nyx,
you,
Hades,
your
Achilles,
ex-girlfriend,
all these guys. Yeah,
and then
for sure.
Chaos is very
just
interesting.
Yeah. I also love how we didn't mention this, but the first two bosses, after you fought them enough times, they'll start varying. So the Hydra will have a different head with different abilities, or instead of fighting Meg, you'll fight one of her two sisters, which Tisiphone cracks me up every time. She just all she says is murder.
Murderer! And she's like almost a zombie.
Yeah, she basically is, and she's pretty easy. I think. I think Tisiphone is probably the easiest, though. She'll catch you off guard for sure. But man, fighting Alecto, the other sister, she will catch. Like, she can kill me still if I'm not being careful.
Yeah, she's pretty good.
She has so much like extra going on her stage. Way more traps. She'll have these giant spinning blades out.
Yeah, those are difficult.
Yeah, so she's tricky, but it's again.
God
really...
forbid you don't have a deflect, because all of them shoot projectiles. All of the three sisters, but hers are just in a spiral, so there's no way to
like
maneuver
dodge
through
it.
them.
Yeah,
you can
tough.
dodge if you dodge in the perfect area.
Sure, it's just
you
way
can get
harder.
in like one level of the spiral and dodge perfectly again and get in another clearing of the spiral. But both of the other sisters have clearings that you can sort of maneuver.
Yeah,
she does get pretty difficult.
Yeah, she's tough.
Also, Megara's voice actress
is perfect.
Yeah, really awesome, and the effects they put over the voice, really, really awesome.
Yeah,
I think one of the
job.
more interesting voices in the game. But those are some of my favorite. I think that least interesting character is probably Hermes.
I agree. I think that's fair.
And
he's very one note.
Yeah, and
but I like
Ares
his function as a. Yeah, Ares is. I have a feeling Ares could be interesting if I put more time with him. But Hermes to me is interesting as a gameplay perspective, though, because his boons don't work like anybody else's.
Oh, sure. I just mean the character.
No. I just thought I'd mention his boons are like these weird support boons that they don't affect your attacks. They don't you'll be able to shoot your cast out multiple times. You'll have a 10% chance to just dodge all damage. Mm-hmm. He just has these weird,
or let you increase your special gauge, your ultimate gauge a little quicker.
He just you can move faster.
It's all support stuff.
It's very interesting.
Some of your attacks might attack faster, or you just might have increased movement speed.
He's interesting.
Oh, there's one of them that lets you get money every time you enter a room.
Yeah, that one's good. There's one that if you dash after taking damage, you'll recover a percentage of your health back.
That one's difficult to use.
Yeah.
I thought it was I had that in my final build, or like the build that I got my first win on. I don't actually know how useful it was, because it's difficult to line up, because you'd have to pay attention to the second you get hit.
Yeah.
And that's pretty difficult to do.
Man, we've talked a lot about Hades.
We have. I think let's go to a quick break real quick. We'll be back in a moment.
Yeah.
But thanks for joining us. And man, if you haven't played Hades, please give it a shot. Or you mentioned you wanted to talk to people who maybe had played Hades in early access. I know a couple people at work actually who picked it up and played just a couple rounds early on. It's such a rich experience.
Especially
definitely go back and try it again.
Yeah, all the story stuff lines up now. I mean, just please give it a shot.
Yeah, it's really something.
Also, though, want to mention, we'd love for you to just share these games with us while we're playing them. We might be playing other games at the same time. Best way to do that is join our Discord. You can get to our Discord via Patreon, $2 tier, $2 a month. Not a lot, but it helps us out a lot. But you can join our Discord.
Definitely.
We have some playthroughs. I've mentioned a couple of things we do, little events. We just want to hear from you while we're playing them. We don't want to talk after we're done all the time, right? We want to engage with you, maybe give us new ideas, right? That sense of community where we're growing our ideas, we're pushing each other, in directions maybe we wouldn't think usually. So really excited for that. If you can join us there, but also make sure follow us on Twitter, Instagram. We're there as well. We'd love to have you.
Thanks. We'll be back. Welcome back to the Unpatched Gaming Podcast. Zach, we are back from break. We are going to talk about a game that I've been super anticipated for.
Yeah,
I've been
stoked.
very much anticipating. That is a little bitty game called Signs of the Sojourner.
I don't know why I did that.
I don't know why you did that either. So Signs of the Sojourner, I played the prologue.
When they were dropping all those demos for indie games during the summer.
During the summer, yeah, I found it then, and then got it in a bundle later. But I played that demo, and it almost brought me to tears. One, because I was very engaged emotionally with the game, but also just like for the same reason that I was brought to tears when I played Brothers: A Tale of Two Sons. Not because what is happening is sad, like that being an emotional game was a little overhyped for me, but I had never experienced that happening in a game. Like just the fact that was able to be achieved was enough to really stir up some emotions in me.
Sure.
And I had a similar experience playing the demo here. So I've been hyping this up to myself all year, finally getting around to playing Signs of the Sojourner. And I'll give a quick rundown of the game. It's a card game, sort of a deck building game. You have 10 cards.
And that's it.
That's it. You got 10 cards, and you can swap out. You have to swap out one card every time you engage with another character. And what these cards represent is a conversation, your emotions in the conversation, and how you manipulate the conversation. So the goal of the game is to sort of bring back this booming economy to your small fictional South American town. At least that's where your character is from. This is a fictional environment, but every town is like some other little like spin on Oaxaca or some like Chinatown or something like that. Sure. Some shanty. I don't think that's the right word. But anyway, some really like cultural depiction, some cultural depiction
sure.
of a little market town, be it from really any culture. There's a bunch of different cultures represented here, like Italians, Hispanics. There might be some sort of
classic downtown U.S. metro.
Yeah, some like East Asian culture. They're all in this one little place, all living together.
A bus drive away.
All a bus drive away, correct. And your town has been on the map for this caravan for a very long time because of your mom. Your mom ran a pretty bustling little shop in your town, and she would leave every month to go on this caravan and bring back goods from around the world. It's not really around the world, but from all different places of life. And she's died, and you're sort of left with the pieces of her life, left with the pieces of her business, and you and your friend are trying to sort of bring back business to this town. So you leave on the caravan, and you have to build relationships with other people, other vendors, get the goods to bring back to your town, and convince the leader of the caravan to keep your place on the map. Or not. There's a few different ways you can sort of drive the narrative, but the encounters with each new character are not about winning per se. They're just about successfully engaging in conversation and building a relationship. So there's anywhere from 2 to 5 cards that you need to play to further the conversation, either negatively or positively. There is no fail state here. And every card has 2 to 3 aspects. You've got the beginning of what you're saying, the end of what you're saying, and maybe an effect that's on the card. So the beginning, and every every card has at least one emotion, I guess. You might have, or like a stance, like a way you're saying this thing. It might be emotional or charismatic or logical, maybe a little forceful. So let's say the beginning of my card is emotional, but the end is logical. So I'll play it. I'll play my beginning emotional card on the end of someone's emotional card. So that piece of the conversation is sort of in sync. And now they'll have to play something that is logical because that's the way my part of the conversation ended. And once you line up 2 to 5 of these cards, just depending on how long that encounter is, you'll further the dialogue. And that's really it. That's the gameplay loop. You're meeting these characters. Well, no, not quite. There's one other big thing, and that's the calendar in the map.
Yeah. So deciding where to go next.
Yeah.
So you follow the caravan, or you can go somewhere totally different off the beaten path. As long as you're aware of the path, and the way that you become aware of a new path is through successful conversations or following the caravan.
Mm-hmm. And I mentioned you leave every month, so you have, again, fictional. A fictional month is 50 days here. And every route you take is going to take up a certain amount of days. There's a bunch of different events on the map. So first, it'll be littered with the stops that the caravan is going to make. So if you go with them, you'll have more dialogue options. You might be able to get in with some of the vendors that are already accustomed to the caravan a little easier. Or you can maybe leave the caravan with some other characters to go to other places. And some of these places might have their annual cook-off or something like that, or some music event that you may want to leave the caravan for, because the caravan's path is not lining up with that. So there's some pretty meaningful choices there, and different segments of the map start to blend into different emotions. It'll show every town on the map has 2 primary emotions. And, it starts off with the emotional and the logical. And then as you get a little further away, this town might now be logical and forceful. And then as you get further away, this town might now be forceful and
creative.
Sure. So you sort of have to build your deck every month with your destination in mind.
Yeah.
And it makes a point a few times in the beginning to tell you can't please everyone. Your life will be harder if you try to please everyone, which is true. That's certainly true of life. And it's definitely true of this game, which I tried to please everyone. So I didn't get the particularly satisfying ending. But one of the most important aspects of this game is the end of a conversation. Every time you leave an encounter, you have to take one of their cards and replace it with one of yours.
So it's not the way that I phrased it to myself when I started to enjoy the game a little more, because I didn't like it at first, is when I realized it's not a who do you want to be, but who do you end up being. You know what I mean? Your decisions, which towns you decide to go to, which ones you decide not to go to, the people who you decide to talk to, they will change you regardless.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's interesting about the game, and an important mindset to have going into it. You're not going, well, who do I want to be my whole new life? That's not it. You are becoming someone regardless. So, and your decisions and your conversations are changing you. So letting them change you, learning to work with who you've become now,
and it's
what
difficult
the game's about.
Because some people don't change alongside you.
Some do.
And some do, definitely.
It's interesting. Their decks will change.
Yeah. I mentioned when I played the demo many months ago, I was pretty emotional there towards the end, and almost brought to tears. One, because the way this is represented, the conversations. Honestly, man, I think this is one of the best metaphor through mechanics that I've ever seen. I really think this is something wholly unique and pretty incredible. Every card, I mentioned, has at least one or two of those emotions, and some of them might have more, like it might start logical but end in a variety of ways. But then there's abilities that directly tie into how we know conversations to work. So like one of the abilities might be clarify. So when in the terms of a conversation, when you clarify something, you might want to jump back to a previous statement and just, clarify it exactly how you would think that would work in a conversation. So instead of continuing the conversation, you can play a new card in between two existing things if it has the clarify skill, or if it has the chatter skill, it allows you to immediately play another card. If that has chatter, you can immediately play it again because you're just a very talkative person. And early game, I had
filling the void.
I had a bunch of those. And then there's another one that's called listen, which allows your opponent to play another card, which is sometimes very useful. And there's another card that in any other card game, I forget what the ability is called. Maybe it's just called observe. I don't remember, but it allows you to see your opponent's current hand. And the goal is not to win and outdo your opponent. So that's not something that's going to give you an edge over your opponent. You're really observing what they're trying to, how they're trying to
how
talk
they
to you.
talk.
Yeah. And like
what they're prepared to say.
Their demeanor is. And so, I might take a second to, when I'm engaging with a new person, to just see how this person, one, was engaging with conversation with someone else before I walked up, and how they start their conversation with me. Is this a particularly talkative and like sort of a shotgun kind of person? If they're just like rattling off, I might be able to engage with that differently than I engage with you, who maybe is a little more reserved. This card allows you to see that and play around that. And instead of winning, you're successfully having a peaceful conversation with this person.
And to have a successful conversation, like, you have to complete one set, a certain number of times. But one mess up along that set will reset everything and count as a failure. And each conversation is different. Sometimes it takes 3 successes or 2 failures to end the conversation. Particularly difficult conversations, trying to convince someone of something that is a little bit more outlandish, you have to get 3 successes and can't fail once. It changes based on that. Something that I found very interesting is the mechanic where if you if you have 4 of the same symbols in a row. So if, I play a card that has 2, empathetic symbols on it, and then the other person also plays 2, so it's 4 in a row, 4 symbols in a row. It creates this little guard. So if you fail the conversation, instead of messing up, it just goes back.
Your accord, I think it's called.
Yeah, it goes
the two
back.
of you are in accordance with each other.
So it doesn't reset the whole conversation, count as a failure. Now that protects you from failing once. It's very interesting. Good little mechanic. Found it very useful.
It's definitely useful. And you mentioned failing. It's not so much where you have to start the entire conversation over. The conversation will develop differently if you have like an out of sync conversation, and you'll still end the encounter even if you don't get those successful dialogue options. You get the negative dialogue options. You're still going to end the encounter and have to take a card from them and remove one of yours. Yep. It's still an experience you had. You don't get to restart. There's not a game over or anything. So there is actually no failure state, but there are negative outcomes for sure. And if you have a successful conversation, you might have a choice of cards, or if you have a negative conversation, you don't get a choice. This is how this went. You spoke over the person. You really didn't give them a chance. So now you have this card that you're not doing anything with. None of the people that you want to talk to this month are going to respond well to this card. So now you have to sort of work around that being in your deck, because that's an experience you've had. You don't get to
and it's fun to try to break into new conversation styles. Like, it's fun to try to okay, I want to be a forceful person, and I'm going to talk to these people and learn enough to be able to get in with them.
My favorite mechanic, which is difficult to work around sometimes, is the fatigue mechanic. So every couple of days, you'll get a fatigue card in your deck, and that's just a blank card that doesn't work with anything. So if it's in your hand, that is taking up a spot in your hand, which is I think 4 cards,
5 cards,
maybe 5. Okay, 5. So it's taking up a spot in your hand for the whole game, or for the whole encounter.
And if you play it, it's 2 failures.
Yes, so you can play it, yeah, but it is 2 failures because it can't connect to anything, and then that's the next card that the person has to respond to, which means nothing can connect to it. So it's very risky to play if you're going to play it at all. But by the time I got back home after the first trip, not so much this time because I already knew what to expect, but when I played the demo, you're given the chance later on to break off from the caravan and go to the big city with this guy who sort of tricks you. He's like a nice guy, but you probably shouldn't trust him. And so I went to the city, and I just come from this small little town, never been to a city. I can't communicate successfully with anyone. This little old woman, this short little woman, like pushes people out of the way and comes up to you with her chocolates and is trying to sell you chocolates. She's talking over you, talking really quick, like you would experience if you were walking down Chinatown in New York. Have you ever been?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really crazy, the sort of like quick bartering that happens there. It's fun.
Sometimes you don't even realize it's happening.
Yeah, it's fun, but if that's not how you've engaged with people before or done business, because that's what the game is about, you're trying to do business, you just won't get it. And your character doesn't, because immediately you go from one part of the map to another and have not had the chance to sort of grow in those experiences. So I was there, I talked to 2 people there, and I took some of those cards. And then on my way, I've got to make my own way back home, because now I'm not with the caravan, and now I'm not with this guy because he left me. So on my way back, I get a couple more of those cards. And by the time I get back to my friend who is running the shop here at home while I'm trying to get inventory, he's had a hard time, you've had a hard time, and you both just sit down on the sidewalk and want to talk to each other and sort of see how you've been. But I'm exhausted, and I have all these new experiences, and I've become this new person. While my best friend, who it's been established that you guys have been a part of your lives forever, like since you were just little kids, and you've been on the same page almost always. I can't even have a peaceful conversation with this guy, and I almost failed that conversation the first time. So I think it's 3 and 3 successes, 3 failures. And I was on my last failure, but I finally got that success. But when you get those failures, you can see on the character's face, and the music is really somber. The art, which maybe isn't quite your thing, but I really think it gets that eclectic, really diverse, really just the liveliness of the sort of cultures that are being represented there, gets that across pretty well. It's pretty cartoony, as you've likely seen already, but the emotion on the characters' faces come across really well. The music is doing a lot to sort of invoke those emotions, and because all of the mechanics have culminated into this moment, and I was invested in that narrative, I was feeling like I cannot believe that I can't even talk to this person right now, because I've had these moments. I've had like pretty hard breakups before, and it's difficult to see, and I've never played a game that has done that so well, and for that, I think it is an incredibly special little experience. It's not going to be for everyone. It's not Game of the Year material. It'll probably win the Games for Change category at the Game Awards.
It's an interesting game. I mean, I definitely want to make sure people know if you're playing this game, it does not stay its welcome, but the gameplay loop it's the same thing over and over and over again. It's just like having conversations is the same thing. It's definitely it can be a little bit tough for certain people to get through, but it is a worthwhile experience. Interesting. And you haven't even mentioned that you can talk to the dog.
Oh yeah.
And
so the little dog joins you, and just to get rid of some fatigue, just go talk to your dog.
And it'll take a fatigue card out, but most importantly, it is a unique symbol, a little rainbow paw, which matches anything and everything in the whole game.
The only way that you can fail a conversation, because I failed a conversation with the dog.
Is
one time,
fatigue?
No, not even fatigue, because I think the dog might also link with the fatigue. I don't remember.
Way.
I don't know for sure, but I had a deck that was almost full of the cards that let me play another card immediately. You have to play another card. You don't get the choice to play another card. You have to.
So
I screwed myself up by just like chattering to my dog and not letting him be a sweet dog.
That's incredible. But yeah, it's just this cute little, like, the universal language of dogs being the best. It was good, but
yeah. And I think I actually really enjoyed the story here. There's a lot of mystery there. I think So your mom has been a part of this caravan for a very long time. We're really gonna get into some minor spoilers here. She started this like secret organization of artists, basically, that are trying to stick it to the man, I guess. I don't know exactly what their purpose was, because I was not able to sort of get in with those same contacts. But there's this organization that she made and these other places that she visited that are like secret places, not just like other towns, but there's some mysterious places, some mysterious people that she was involved with. And depending on the sort of person that you become, you can explore these different avenues. Unfortunately, I say unfortunately, that really depends on who you are. It's not a game that you can get everything for in one go. You might be able to explore successfully 2 of those paths if you do very well. I was not able to explore one of them because I did spread myself a little too thin, and come the second half of the second to last day or second to last trip, and then all of the last trip, I was rarely having a successful conversation. I was too tired because I was going way across the map. And so by the time I got there, my deck was not changed, which is something you need to pay attention to. If you are going from one map to the other, it might take a little more time, but stop at those other places. Rest, talk with those people, and sort of like get used to those kinds of conversations. So by the time you get there, you have the cards you need. I didn't do that. So it didn't go very well. I had a pretty big breakup with my friend. I left the town and started my own shop somewhere else, like in the big city or something. What did you do there at the end? How did that work?
There is a character named Oscar, who is a robot who is selling peppers.
Yeah.
He is not supposed to be selling peppers. You're supposed to buy them. He's supposed to be harvesting them. But he really loves gardening and growing and cultivating these things. And his supervisor says you shouldn't be buying from him. That's not the proper procedure, and that kind of stuff. But
interesting. I didn't meet him.
You're supposed to get, basically there's an earthquake and you're supposed to get some parts for your friends to help out in the town. Well, I gave the parts to Oscar because he was in disrepair after the quake. And you meet him in the small Italian style town later, and you realize he has retired. He's retired from his work and has just made his own farming business, basically. And I immediately was like, I'm gonna hang out with you for the rest of my life. So I just retired with Oscar.
Interesting.
And it was
I didn't meet
delightful.
Oscar. I didn't meet like 8 characters or something like that. I think
insane.
that there's a small handful of places that I wasn't able to go, because again, you can only get to those places if you're with the caravan and they go there, or
you have a successful portion of a conversation in which someone gives you directions.
Yeah. So there's a lot of places I wasn't able to go, and a lot of characters I didn't meet. There's a lot of characters here, all very unique. And so I met another robot that I tried to get in with. I think your mom's locket was like a key to the robot or something like that. The robot was for some reason very drawn to your locket. Did you meet the guy that made vinegar?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so his little robot helper is who I was trying to sort of get a little further with. But again, towards the end of the game, I just did it wrong. So when it comes out on Switch, I think I'll definitely replay this. It's super short, as Zach mentioned, doesn't outstay its welcome. So it is something, especially if you find it on sale, give this a shot. I don't think you'll have another experience like it. It's and the music. I think the music
great.
Really captures a bunch of different cultures all at once, and each place through the music is very well realized, and the emotions you'll likely be experiencing there. It's great. There's not much more to say because it is such a little bitty game, but I'm happy we got to play it. Happy you did finally come around to enjoying it, and definitely give it a shot. Signs of the Sojourner.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Anything else?
No, man, that's it. Thanks for joining us. We love sharing games with you guys as always. Again, hit us up on Twitter, Discord. We'd love to hear from you guys. And that's it for this week.
All right, we will see you next time. And we are one more thing. We are back to a bi-weekly schedule.
Woo!
So, a little bit of a break there. My Steam library is currently saying like 75 hours in the past 2 weeks. So a little bit of a break.
Yeah, let's
bi-weekly now.
Definitely go back to that. But yeah, join us if you can. We're gonna be two guys who never finished Last of Us playing Last of Us Part 2. So that'll be interesting.
Do you know the ending?
To what?
The first game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the whole game. I just
you never finished it.
Yeah, never finished it.
Yeah. So we'll be diving into that. For now, we'll be catching up with Game of the Year stuff. So we will see you next week next cast with Last of Us 2.
Yep.
Bye.
Thank you guys.